Saikou.
Yeah.
Talking to a friend, and they're like, bro, can you in the next week? I'm like, we're having Saikou Sawo. It's like, Saikou who? I'm like, Saikou Sawo of the Golden Era Party, now the presidential candidate for PPP.
PPP.
I roll his eyes. He's like, bro, can we say Sawo? Too many presidential candidates. Everybody is running for office. Can you tell people when they say Saikou who, and you address this reaction? Too many candidates. Everybody and their father is running for the presidential candidate. What do you say to that?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't blame the brother for his reaction. I mean, Gambia we do have a lot of political parties and movements. But I think one thing I can also proudly say, we've been, I mean, with the proliferation, right, we've been able to consolidate that a little bit because, Golden Era is now part of PPP. So because PPP is already a legacy, it's already an existing party. Everybody knows PPP. So at least we've done something there, right, in terms of consolidation, because we fully merged, we joined PPP. So that's one less, party or movement, to deal with. So to the brother, I hope he's listening. We align with PPP in so many ways, in terms of their structure, what the constitution is, how the party is evolving. And that's a party, that I align with on so many levels. Even if, when you look at our Gene and agenda from Golden Era, it aligns in so many ways with PPP. And then, the Secretary General and Party Leader, Honorable Madike Fall, also has, similar mindset and vision in terms of, politicking, maturity in politics, how to convey message to grassroots. So we embody a lot of things in common. So we just didn't join PPP just because, just because we needed to. We joined PPP because there are so many other parties we could have affiliated with or joined, but PPP stood out the most. And our vision, in terms of, the party structure, what they believe in. And if you look at the history of the party, it wasn't just ruled by one, we just didn't have one candidate, for a long period of time. If we've seen successions from Sadauda to Oje Jallo to Papanja to Keba Jallo to now Honorable Madike Fall, and these are people from different tribes or regions within the party. And then PPP is one of the only parties that do have term limits of 8 years, 4-year term. So it's easy to also sell that agenda to Gambian, like, hey, if we have a PPP-led government, we can actually incorporate that into the constitution, right? So those are all the values we see that are of great benefits and what the Gambia is in dire need of today. So due to those reasons, we joined PPP. So it wasn't just necessarily just out of comfort.
So talking about joining PPP,
yeah,
there's the cynicism in me. I'm a very cynical person. I'm like, here you have a young man. He came and he launched a party. It didn't take long for him to realize that there's a lot more to forming a party. It requires setting up structures all over the country. It requires financial investments of 2 million just to register the party. It requires a lot to be out there. A typical young man, he says, you know what? I may have to find a shortcut, an easier way. And here you have a PPP. They were also out there recruiting individuals. And that maybe vision has nothing to do with it. It is the easiest way to be on the ballot. You have a young man who doesn't want to do the work. And then you have a party that is very open, looking for somebody to be their candidate. Am I just being cynical? What say you?
I love your point of view. And I think I answered part of that question a little bit, to some extent. And one thing I would say about me as a person, I'm a fighter. I'm a veteran, served in the U.S. Army. And when Nen and I even co-founded, Golden Era, it started off as a movement. And, we did our homework. We just didn't sit and hire people to do the work. We were actually on the ground doing surveys, so we've put in the time and effort and resources. We just didn't say, because we knew it will cost 2 million to register a party. So finance was never, the reason why we ended up, we even tried to register our party, and obviously, there are about 6-7 parties that are facing the same challenges we are. And I don't want to go into the whole rabbit hole with IEC, but ever since, I've always had that vision in me, like I would like to work with PPP at some capacity, right? But it's hard for, like I'm an entrepreneur. Prior to today, nobody knew me in the Gambia as much outside of friends and family. So if Nen and I didn't start Golden Era as a movement, if they didn't see the hard work we did on our own to establish that movement, that is well known in the Gambia today, it would have been hard for PPP to say, okay, yes, you're a PPP member, come lead the party. But, they've seen the effort, and they've looked at our background. We have proven track record, from being, self-made individuals, worked in America, came back home and invested in this country. Nen and I haven't worked for this government. We haven't embezzled. We haven't, we're not involved with kickbacks or, all this, corruption and, procurement scandal. So we came back and invested back to the people that we believe in, to Gambians. And when I was coming back home, the intention was never to be in politics. It was, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe in, if we Africans need to do the needful first of all, which will involve coming back home. We can't all be sitting comfortably in Europe or America and saying, hey, this person has to do this person has to do that. We all have that equal right and opportunity to make change in different capacity, way, shape, or form, because we all don't have the same ability. So whatever I'm able to do in my own capacity, it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So this is the mentality and mindset that I had. So when I came here 5 years ago, I wanted to be part of that change. I wanted to create jobs, open businesses. Politics came last minute. This was last year. I didn't even know Nene from America. Right. We met, we had similar mindset, we had similar vision, and we decided to co-found Golden Era as a movement. And we just kicked off. So we didn't just take the easy route by just joining PPP. Like I said, PPP, as a party, is very diverse. We've seen how leadership has changed hands over time, from Mandinka to Fula to Sarahule, Papanjai, to Madike Fall today, to Keba Jallo. These are all people from different backgrounds. And this is a party with term limit. Even you become a PPP member today, you can contest with Honorable Madike Fall in the next election cycle to become the flag bearer. And if you get endorsed and ratified, that's what it is. So this is a party I feel like we align in so many ways. And I've had several discussions and meetings, prior to joining PPP. So I noticed, yes, we have similar mindset. We can do, when we come together, instead of saying fragmented, we can accomplish a lot. So this is the reason why we joined PPP. It wasn't just merely out of convenience or us being cowards. We can challenge the IEC because, there's a whole, I don't want to go into that rabbit hole with the whole IEC registration. We've done the needful on our part. We hired quality assurance to make sure we're submitting the right signatures. They exercise their due diligence. I'm not disputing that. But anyways, that's a story for another day.
No doubt, no doubt. Thank you very much. I mean, Mr. Sawo. Brother Marong.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sawo, for joining us today. And we appreciate your time and effort and the conversation that you're having out there in the public space. My first question is, I know you briefly, you mentioned your folks are from Badibu and Glimpse, but I like to hear your professional and personal background, starting from your professional to your personal background. What leads you to get into politics?
Yes, so personal background, grew up in Sokoto. Our family compound is in South Kunda. So when I finished grade 12, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to the US for further studies. Graduated from East High School. I was the best student, 21 years ago. I graduated in 2005. So education paved the way for me. Actually, if it wasn't for education, I'd probably be any other Gambian on the streets, begging for handouts. So I saw the value of education at a very early age. And then when I came to the US, Obviously, I didn't have papers at the time. So I had to work twice as hard than everybody else. I worked 2 jobs. I served in the military because back then, when Obama was the president, it was easier back then to become citizen once you served in the army. It helped fast track that process. So and also the benefits of being in the army, they help pay for some of your school. So I was able to do my bachelor's and master's program. I have my MBA degree. So I worked in corporate America, for companies like T-Mobile. I did work for Microsoft briefly as well, and other Fortune 500 companies. So while I was doing that, I always wanted to become an entrepreneur, have my own business, create my own career path. And that led me to start a consulting business that is focused on technology and business consulting. And within the first year, we were very successful. We went from a $0 company to a 7-figure company in revenue. So we experienced that growth at at a very fast pace. As the company became successful, I had that vision that, hey, it's time to come back home, and be part of change. Let's create companies, from tech companies to farming. Let's also contribute. Let's change the narrative, that people have for Africa. So when I came back home, what actually was shocking to me is prior to me leaving Gambia, I noticed some of those issues we're facing back then has even exacerbated over time. Because back then when I was in the Gambia, people were going through tobacco for greener pastures, but it was mostly men. But today you see both men, women, and even children risking their lives. And then when I came home, I saw limited opportunities still. So so I was like, well, what can I do to ease employment? And the only way I could do that is by creating a company. So I created multiple companies. One of the flagship investment was Mirrored that my wife and I launched, and we started up it's a med spa. We have close to 30 employees working there today, alhamdulillah. And then we also focus on training them. So, so it's a symbiotic relationship where we invested into these people, training them, and then they're earning a decent wage. So this was way before politics. I never knew I was going to even be a politician today. But last year, Nene and I were having a conversation. She's one of our big customer at Mirrored, and we were talking about the hardship, how things could be better in this country, how we can challenge the status quo, what we can also do. Because when she came as well, she invested a lot, in real estate and hired people as well. So we decided to launch Golden Era. It was just a casual conversation that turned into something serious. So that's on the professional side. So on the personal side, I got my work ethic from my father. He was a very hardworking man. He spent most of his life overseas in different African countries, working hard, from Congo to Angola, Nigeria, Sierra Leone. So so I got my work ethic from him. He never took no for an answer. He never said, hey, I was never educated, but he wanted the best for his children because my parents never been to high school. My mom was a middle school dropout. My dad has never been to high school, but they wanted the best for me. They made sure I took education seriously from a young age, and so I was nurtured that way, and I saw how hard my dad worked, and I've always wanted to be in that position in the future, to say, hey, you've done enough, Dad. You just relax. We got it from here, because I grew up in an environment where a lot of people didn't value education at that time. So when you were going to good schools, taking education seriously, it's like, people don't value that, but, I've seen how it helped me tremendously. And so when you look at the state of affairs today in Gambia, in terms of education opportunities, it's still limited. So we need to challenge the status quo, and we can do that not by arguing, but by coming with tangible solutions to how we can alleviate poverty in this country, how we can empower youth. 65% of our youth are 45 and under. So due to these various reasons, and we see how, the everyday Gambians struggle. I'm here 95% of the time, within this past 5 to 6 years, 5.5 years. And you see it firsthand, when I go to these markets in Tangier, I'm not just sending, my butler to, go on errands. I actually go to these communities. I go to Abuko myself and all these different communities, just so I can have interaction with the people, understand their daily struggle. And these are some of the reasons why I got the motivation to join politics, because I noticed if we, the young people, stay on the sideline, it impacts all of us in one way, shape, or form, whether we like it or not. That's the reality. Um, so, um, so yeah, so from that journey to where I am today. This is the reason why I'm here, and I'm glad to be on your platform, so other people can also be inspired. It doesn't just stop from me or you, but all Gambians. We can all participate in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Saho. I heard you, and it looks like you have a very good background. But in terms of your experience that you earned from the US, going back to Gambia, interacting with folks on the ground, I think what is fascinating is you highlight the struggle before you left and when you came back and you talk to folks. Now, based on your experience, both, being in the United States and going back to Gambia, establishing and creating job opportunities in the private sector, how do you think that prepares you to tackle the pressing issues that face our country?
Yes, I'll start with the military. The discipline definitely is one, because when you serve in the U.S. Army, it's not about you. You're doing it for country, right? So that discipline, that selflessness is there, and I think a lot of our leaders need to be selfless. Unfortunately, when President Barrow was asked why he needs to run for a third term, it wasn't about it wasn't about the country, it was about him and his party. His response was, hey, my party is too young. I can't abandon my party. I can't relinquish my party. That's why I'm running for a third term. So I don't see selflessness there. I don't see service for country there. So that should be the first priority. What can you offer your country? And then number two, when it comes to my professional experience, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I've done consulting for big firms, like Intel, manufacturing firms in America. I've negotiated deals, obviously I have my own consulting company there. And one thing I'll tell you about negotiation, you always have to have leverage in negotiation. And how can you have leverage? Through value creation. You look at Gambia, a lot of these deals that we have and you look at the concession, it's putting us in a bad frame or situation long term. Look at the issue with our ports. We should be able to negotiate from an area of strength, not desperation. We should be able to tell Gambians, hey, this is the framework we have with this foreign entity. If it's able to survive scrutiny, then it is a good deal. So this is where I feel like I bring a lot of expertise and value. I know a good deal when I say it. I know a bad deal when I say it, and I know the right questions to ask. How does this trickle down to average citizens? How can Gambians benefit from this? What is the long-term financial implication? What is the economic benefits tied to these deals? Those are some of the questions we ask. And we as a country, we can't just, give our sovereignty away, because if you look at that deal, 80-20 for 30 years, that's a whole generation that is gone right there. And we get it. And some of those issues we can fix ourselves. There are technocrats in the Gambia, either here or abroad, that we can work with to fix, some of those, industry, like the ports, for instance, without having to give our sovereignty away. So I have those expertise. I've negotiated with multi-billion-dollar companies like SAP, Microsoft, on enterprise agreements. Negotiated on behalf of our consulting clients. So, if you're a leader, you're representing a country, you should be able to negotiate from a place of strength. You should be able to create value that you can sell, to other world leaders as well. So I come with that expertise as well. And in terms of the issue, I do believe I'm the candidate, I'm one of the candidates, or the candidate that understands the core issues of this country, how mismanagement, corruption, lack of systems, affect our everyday lives. And then also when it comes to the core issues of this country, I will tell you it's few things, right? We have low GDP, which is a big problem. We have very weak economic engines. How does the country even generate revenue? Without incurring so much debt, without depending highly on taxes, right? We're a very tax-based economy. And how do we restructure our debt? 25 to 30% of our debt today in this country, is 25 to 30% of our budget in this country today is tied to debt. So we spend a lot. We spend more on servicing debt, principal and interest, than we invest into healthcare. So the only way we can get ourselves out of this mess is to find ways to restructure our debt, boost the GDP, because 2 to 3 billion is very low, even though we're a small country. How we can boost, and transform, our industries to become viable. So these are all, experience that I come with, and understanding anytime the country invests in these projects, there should be return on investment. We should be able to generate surplus. We can't just invest into low return projects or no return projects, because what happens is we, the taxpayers, become burdened with the debt. So I understand what fiscal policy is, and what fiscal policies need to be in place to ensure these benefits trickle down to the average Gambians without having to increase taxes and levies all the time. So when it comes to the economy, negotiating good deals, representing Gambian good light, having the discipline and service for country, I believe I do come with a lot of those qualities that would be impactful for every Gambian. And I think it will be because we need a paradigm shift in this country. We need people that think beyond tribalism or sectarianism. We need people that can think like, hey, some of the things we're doing today would have long-term reverberation 20, 30 years from today. So we need to make sure when we do these things, we're leaving a legacy behind that other generations can be proud of, and not put them in a bad situation. So I'm not just a short-sighted individual, because we have to think holistically. Some of the decisions we make today, we may not see the pain today, but it will affect, how we operate as a country, how we need to move with pride, what are the things we need to do to ensure Gambia is a greater country. You go to our institutions, some of the ministerial offices, it's so rundown. It looks bad. When a foreign ambassador comes and you look at the building, you look at the office structure, it's like, wow, I can't believe this is a ministerial office. So those are some of the things we take for granted, but it shows even how civil servants behave on the job. It's like they're doing us a favor, and we, the taxpayers, are funding their salary. So I think it takes a whole lot of qualities other than this, but I believe understanding some of these key issues and how to address them logically, technically, and doing a thorough assessment. And we need adaptive leadership in this country, because we have so many issues as a country. We need an adaptive leader to know how to tackle them as they arise. So I hope I'm being able to answer your question.
Thank you. Faramos, go ahead.
Mr. Sawo, I listened to you very carefully. And the question that Mr. Marong asked, and you said a lot of things. You talk about the low GDP and how to boost it. You talk about we're a tax-based economy. You talk about servicing the debt. You talk about negotiating good deals. You talk about paradigm shift. You talk about subsidies. I have to do things holistically. There are a lot of words that you threw around. You see, I have no doubt in my mind that you're a very intelligent man. And if you were to win the presidency, I think that you will do good from a capacity standpoint. I do believe that. But I also hear a lot of rhetoric. The fundamental question is, have you thought about how are you going to win the presidency? In other words, I want you to map out for me, how do you think that Saikou Sawo would be in a position come 2026 to win an election in order to be able to do all the good things that you're saying? You see, good things But unless and until you are in a position to govern, it's not going to amount to anything. My question is, how do you think a pathway to win the presidency, and why, with the skills that you have, are there any other ways that you could channel it to help the country?
Sure, that's a great question. I mean, right now, as a party, even when we're a movement, we've been very active in terms of connecting with grassroots. Nene and I, we've been going to different places, door to door, community to community, from here all the way to Basse, not just in the Combo areas. So, and PPP, since we joined PPP, it's been a continuation of that. Because, so the grassroots, we've connected with the grassroots. We understand the key issues, and we continue to empower them. We continue to sensitize them. We continue to talk to them that, hey, we do understand your problems. We have proven track record of our own of solving some of these issues. But obviously, like you said, the capacity that I have today is not enough to solve all the issues of Gambians because I don't have certain authority. But I would also like to acknowledge the fact that winning an election in Gambia, especially in today's climate, honestly, it's not a one-party solution. No one single party can win an election in the Gambia, no matter how good or amazing your agenda is. You need to also work with like-minded parties, collaborate with them, see how we can synchronize and come together as one. We stand a better chance. So I do recognize that fact, because I do know those are some of the realities on the ground that even the layman in Gambia knows, right? So behind the scenes, PPP have been reaching out, to different political party leaders to see how we can work well together, whether it be coalition or forming an alliance. And I'm not, I'm not hungry for leadership. Whoever is selected based on our TOR of, framework of that TOR, who will willfully support whoever emerges as the leader. But it could be me, it could be anybody else. Every other leader from a different political party, they have their agenda and vision, and then we will all willfully support. So I'm in tandem with that, ideology. Like, yes, all political parties need to come together because we all want a better Gambia. If somebody from within us wins today, we're winning it on behalf of all Gambia. So I'm very open to that. I'm not power hungry, like I said. Nene also is not power hungry. Honorable Madike Fall is not power hungry. We want to work with like-minded Gambians. But when it comes to coalition building and alliance, I want it to be something genuine. I want it to be full of trust and transparency. Because we've seen what happened in 2016. And 10 years later, we have nothing to show for it, right? So I want to make sure any alliance or coalition that I'm going to be part of, it should be something I can sell to my kids. It should be something I can sell to my wife. It should be something I can sell to my friends and family. If it's something that I can't even sell to them, why would I bring it forward to the Gambian people? So I want to make sure, because it's something I have to vouch for. Because for me, credibility means a lot. Because if I sell something to you and it's bad, then tomorrow you have every right to say, hey, I trusted you the last time. Why should I listen to you today? Right? So, and again, this is why, like you said, you're very, when it comes to cynicism, right? You kind of feel like, hey, we've heard this before, we've seen this before, and look now, we're seeing the same thing. So, so that's why I'm very careful. I've been reaching out to other political leaders. We have to be pragmatic and transparent in this approach. And I feel like once leaders come together and we agree on something tangible, we should be able to show that agreement to the Gambian public. Like, hey, this is what we agreed on. And tomorrow, whoever that leader is, if you differ from that, we know, well, this is what, nobody can dispute the fact because now the agreement is there in the open. We agreed on term limits, we agreed on constitutional reform, we agreed on economic reform, we agreed on fighting corruption. So if the leader goes in there and do something, contrary, it's easy to say, hey, you're not a man of principle. You contradicted everything you said. So I want it to be based on those principles. So I'm not just going to jump out there to be in a coalition or alliance just for headlines to make it look good. My picture is out there. No, it has to be based on those principles. And if we cannot accomplish that, then I don't want to be part of it because it's bound for failure again. Because what's going to stop 2016 from repeating itself in 2026?
Right. So you alluded to something. I guess answering the question about the pathway to victory, basically like most of the parties, you're basically saying it's going to come down to the opposition parties coming together. And you went further, you said it has to be based on the framework of the TOR.
Yeah.
You see, the big elephant in the room, we all know it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a trust factor in the absence of trust, but then we have to kind of weigh it as a cost-benefit analysis. Do we want to kind of go along with the present status quo, or do we want to find a way of trusting each other, even though whatever happened in 2016 did happen? The big elephant in the room would be who is going to lead if we were going to have a coalition. Now, what is your take on how do we approach that particular issue? The framework of saying who is going to lead. I mean, there are a lot of people saying different things. What would be, and I'm sure when you sit down with the stakeholders, what would be your take that you would be much more comfortable with in terms of how do we deal with this big elephant in the room? Who should be the person leading this coalition? I know the trust has to come in, no doubt, but there has to be a process. How do you see that process?
Yeah, I think the process should be fair.
What does that mean?
Okay, well, when I say fairness, because obviously we have other political parties and movements, and some are big, right? Some are smaller parties and movements. Right. And then obviously the bigger parties are saying, hey, we have the, we've been in elections before. We have the, what is it? I'm looking for the right word. The historical data is there, right? For example, GDC, UDP, they've contested before, even though, right? Mm-hmm. So they want to have more say, right? But I think this is where compromise has to be made. I'm not in the position to dictate how it should be. I feel like the political actors need to, I know there are different coalition building platforms, right? These are just referees. They want every political actors to come together. But then this is where compromise needs to happen. Like in other countries, we've seen they go through delegates. Like, I'm more familiar with America, like the Republican Democrat Party, and, they do their primaries from within the party. They have delegates, and then whoever wins emerges, like the case of Obama and Hillary, right? Even Trump within the RNC. Yeah. So, however, Gambia is different. I don't like doing, it has to be apples to apples comparison. And I don't think Gambia and America are on the same wavelength. Right. But this is where I feel like political actors need to sit down and compromise and find that, middle ground that works, that is symbiotic, that works for all parties involved. Because obviously it's a great argument if GDC or UDP or DOI or even SFR, they've contested, they have the historical data of, how much votes they would be able to garner versus, political parties that haven't contested in a while or movements, we don't know their strength yet. Because, having big rallies and then turning that into votes in elections is a whole different subject topic, right? We all know that and we're all aware of that. So I believe political leaders need to sit together. We can all compromise and agree, because it's a very hard topic, and you cannot dismiss, the people these big political parties have today. They do have influence. They do have the people. So I think this is where we need to compromise. I can't give a single answer or dictate. We just have to sit together and compromise and do what's best for Gambia.
I asked the question because you are a party leader and you're going to be part of the conversation. And as far as I have already highlighted the big elephant in the room, and I see you dancing around it, because now if you're dancing around it, I mean, again, it's not even going to help us, the people that are outside that are kind of looking forward to having a mini coalition. I mean, like you said, it's a very complex and a very difficult, but PPP, I'm sure you have your position, and unless you don't want to show your hand, I'm trying to understand how would you react to that big elephant in the room in terms of, because if we can agree to that, I think all the other things are easy. Don't you think?
Yeah, but this is a question that also involves other political parties, not just PPP. And then they also have political leaders, and they have movement and people behind them. They have to report to those people, right? PPP has its own supporters. We have to go back and tell them something, right? So I think we have to unanimously, all political actors need to get together in one room and start having. We haven't that, they've been fragmented talks, I've met with Honorable Halifa Saleh. I've talked to him on the side. I've met with Honorable Dabo. I've talked to him on the side. But now, how do we all come together in the same room and discuss this key issue? Because it's complex. It's not.
I know.
and people get very sensitive when it comes to this topic, right? And I represent PPP, and there are people behind me supporting me. I want to make sure I also echo their message. It shouldn't be just what I want, what Saikou wants, or what Honorable Madike wants, or what Honorable Nanko wants. But what about the thousands of supporters behind us? What about the people that have experienced failed coalition in the past? They want to do something differently this time. Because some people, I wasn't there in 2016 when the coalition failed, but there's a lot to learn from that. So we need all those people in the same room to say, hey, we've seen this before. We don't want to repeat of that, because obviously, when we come back to the Gambians, they're going to know it's bullshit. Excuse my language. So this is why I want to be very pragmatic. It will involve different people that have the experience and history to sit together, so that way we have a formidable coalition that Gambians can believe in. Because if you form a coalition today with certain entities, you may not be able to sell it to Gambians. They'll be like, nah, they could smell that they could smell bullshit from afar. So we need to be sure this time is credible, and we're able to answer those tough questions when those journalists come out, when those PRO comes out, or the CSOs. They want to hear something substantive. Because we don't want to be in the same predicament we're in today. So there's no one answer to this. I'm open to collaboration, compromise. Like I said, it doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody in this room. It can even be you. If you are nominated, we're going to rally behind you and make sure, we pull ourselves by the footsteps and get to work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Sawo. Brother Marong.
Mr. Sawo, thank you very much. I listened to you carefully. You talk about value added, and also mention about negotiations, what is beneficial for the masses rather than an individual. And considering we know the history and the current political environment, there is no accountability, and there is corruption. And because you run a company, change can be something that will breed resistance.
Yes.
And obviously, you have to know the way. And folks are so used to, for almost 60 years, they are used to the status quo. My question to you is, how would you navigate or tackle these pressing issues? And you obviously looking at the hierarchy and understanding of the challenges and the dynamics of value added, what would be your approach to ensure that that is fully realized?
Sure. I'm going to answer this in a different way. I'm going to use different example. Change is something that is always constant, whether we like it or not, and we have to evolve at some point. When it comes to mismanagement and corruption in this country, people that are working for the government or even regular Gambian, they need to understand how it impacts everybody. It just doesn't impact those at the top. It impacts those at the bottom, those in the low class, middle class, and high income class. So if you look at some of these projects, right, they will say, okay, we invested 100 million in XY project, but that's on paper. But technically, probably only $50 million went to that project, right? And then the other 50 million has been embezzled or whatever the case is. So, but this is where we need to educate Gambians, and I think anybody that understands the logic will know where I'm coming from. If we went out there or we use taxpayer-funded, revenue to say, hey, this project costs 100 million, but through kickbacks and corruption, we only invested 50 million, right? And then the other 50 million we shared among ourselves. Gambia should understand, yes, you can share that money among yourselves, but at the end of the day, that inefficiency would come back and haunt us. Like for instance, look at our stadium today. We still can't play home games. It's affecting the youth. You know, you look at even the road construction projects, right? You know, some of these white elephant projects, you know, even the agricultural projects, we're handing out tools, machineries. Until today, we have nothing to show for it. If I spend $10, $20 million buying machinery, tractors, I'm handing out to the farmers, right? I should be able to create a cost benefit analysis. I should be able to project the return on that investment. I should be able to set OKRs with our objective and key results. Like, hey, we've invested 10 million in agriculture, but in 2 years from now, we'll have reduced import. We'll be able to cultivate more lands. We'll be able to yield more tons of rice, right? This is how you measure the progress. And if year over year over year, we're still importing rice like never before, cost of commodities is still going high because, you know, there's not enough supply versus demand, then something is fundamentally wrong in the system. So these are all the issues we need to rectify as a country, and we need people to understand, you know, the impact. You know, taxpayer-funded, you know, projects should not just be used at anybody's discretion. You know, we should be able to, you know, tap technocrats, you know, to do a deep assessment, you know, on some of this investment to make sure, you know, we can generate enough return on that investment. So that way, the maintenance and then even the debt obligation or returning investment for the average citizen, because otherwise it comes back and haunt all of us. Because the government, how else are they going to generate revenue, especially in Gambia today, since it's very tax-based? They always have to keep increasing the taxes or levies. You know, look at the airport situation. I feel like maybe that's a bad deal they signed somewhere. They have that, you know, budget fall, you know, sorry, they have that shortfall in the budget, and they have to increase the levies at the airports to pay for those bad debts. So we're going to continue seeing, you know, this type of scenarios where we all have to end up paying for it, either by increased taxes or new levies, you know, or they may increase levies on petrol because that's a commodity we all use, you know. So people need to understand the long-term implication. And then when you're working for the government, the money does not belong to you; it belongs to the taxpayers. You know, we should have something to show for it. When we go out there, Gambia is not the only country with debt. You know, we've seen other countries with higher debt than Gambia, but they have something to show for it. They have good roads. They have good healthcare. But if we are all corrupt, we're all looking for ourselves and our selfish interests, at the end of the day, if we don't have good quality healthcare, what's going to happen? When I fall sick or somebody falls sick, we all have to go to Senegal or fly to Europe for healthcare. We've seen that happen with the president. You know, when his mom got sick, they billed the taxpayer because they had to fly her out, medevac her out to Senegal. So people need to understand the long-term implication of some of these things. And then when you serve in that capacity, you know, you have to serve the Gambian people. You know, you have to do the needful, you have to do what's right. And, you know, it's not a place to abuse power, or the funds doesn't belong to you. It belongs to every Gambian. So, and I think that's what's missing in how we operate as a country. So we need to have guardrails as well to make sure everybody is held accountable. There are no double standards. You know, if you find guilty of corruption, we cannot move you to another sector. You have to resign. You have to, you know, pay back those funds or face jail time. You know, that's the only deterrent. Because I feel like when, you know, if we maintain the status quo, it's only going to get worse because there's no penalty for, you know, for these issues. You know, and then it's sickening because, you know, vulnerable people in our society that deserves this help, they deserve the help, they're looking for this benefit, they're looking for this development, it's not able to trickle down to them because of a few 1% that are up there grifting off of our resources. And we need to change that. I think it's a mindset that needs to change. People need to understand when you're serving for the country, you know, it's not a self-enrichment program where, oh, I have to be in my house first, I have to go to Mecca. Go through those things in your private life, establish yourself, and then come serve the Gambian people. You know, you're a public servant. You're accountable to the Gambian people. So, you know, these are things we need to enforce. We need to make sure, you know, they are part of the Constitution. So that way we can have, you know, patriotic citizens that are really ready for change and development in the Gambia.
Thank you, Mr. Sawo. You know, I like your answer. In a perfect world, that would be optimal. But again, you and I know, and I think Musa and I are both older than you, but we know it's not possible with the current situation in our country, all right? And the reason I use that resistance because there's a lot of people, even voters, who really think that they are answerable to the government rather than the other way around, that these folks are public servants and they should be accountable to them. But it's always the other way. And that's a mentality. Even the president, when he speaks, they think, they don't need to hold the president accountable. Now my question is, I think you talk about the grains and having people pocket some of those and use it for their own benefit. My question to you is, obviously there are lapses in terms of our revenue mobilization, our revenue collection, and where it goes and how it ultimately get handed to a government, account where it takes care of all the other stuff. Obviously, there were gaps, and it's not going to be easy. President Saho is not going to be everywhere to oversight these issues, right? To see them day to day. You're going to rely on folks. And I guess my question to you is, how would you reset the button to ensure that resource mobilization is maximized, corruption is cut down, and accountability is a set goal? And folks, obviously, if you're not going to be able to do that, obviously you're not all these things you're saying, it's not gonna come to fruition.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So my question, I'm looking for practically, our healthcare is deplorable and is very, very sad. But what would you do as a person, considering our debt portfolio is very, very high and all these things require money? What will be a pragmatic approach in solving these issues?
Okay, so to answer your first question, this is where we need checks and balances in the system, from the executive branch to the legislative branch to the judiciary branch. They need to be independent of each other. We need legislative branch that can pass laws that are enforceable, and then we need judiciary branch, from our police to judges to high courts, that will do the needful without partisan politics. So without empowering those sectors, to be autonomous and independent of each other, and there's always interference and nepotism and favoritism, like you said, we're back to square one. So we need all these, key players, because like you said, the president cannot be everywhere monitoring or micromanaging everybody. This is where we need strong people in the legislative branch. We need strong people in the judiciary branch. This is where we also need whistleblowers, that are within the government sector to say, hey, this is mass fraud and abuse. I'm going to call it out. And let's have an independent body. Like in the US, we have the FBI. Let's have an independent body that is powerful, that can investigate this, regardless of your party affiliation, not just make random, assumption, accusation, but thoroughly do a forensic audit and make sure, hey, fraud actually has happened here. And this is what the Gambia needs to know, and they should be held accountable. But if you don't have an empowered institution, all of our institutions are already compromised. Even the layman in the streets cannot even trust them because they know, there's prejudice. Then we're back to square one. In terms of the economy, you look at the subsidies, right? They don't trickle down, to the average Gambian. Last month in April, they provided 25% in subsidy in diesel. But like I said, the businessmen are exploiting the system. They're able to absorb those savings, but it's not trickling down to average Gambians because we don't have any enforcement. What task force do we have to make sure the price of commodities stays the same? Because we've just given them 25% in savings from having to increase that. So we need people out there that can go and monitor these things. We need to digitize how we operate as a country. A lot of this, especially with AI today, it's cheaper and quicker to have a lot of these digital portals, even WhatsApp. We should have a WhatsApp channel dedicated for, price control. And I'm not saying the government should dictate prices for all commodities, but basic commodities like, like fuel, food, the essentials, our bread, day-to-day, sugar, we should have a price range, especially with this subsidy. This subsidy is costing us almost $500 million. The businessmen are taking all those savings, but then there's no task force to make sure, because this is what they tell the retailers and the end consumers. Hey, Look at what is going on in Iran. It's costing me a lot to bring containers and, you know, logistics. So I have to charge you 20, 30% more. But then they just got the savings, you know, from the office of the president or from the Ministry of Finance. So if we don't have people to do the checks and balances without prejudice, like you said, it's the same issue. So we have legislative and judiciary branch for this reason. They should be empowered, and we should have independent task force. They can even investigate the office of president if they believe there's a problem that needs to be investigated. And then coming to your last question, you know, in terms of healthcare, how do we fix the issue? You know, because, you know, like in combos, right? We do have hospitals, you know, but they are not proper. They're not. We don't have adequate equipment and supplies. What I'm saying is the system should be outside of, you know, we obviously know mismanagement, corruption, you know, lack of sustainability. We can create a system that that incorporates end-to-end value chain system, like with the healthcare, right? You know, like with the healthcare, we need, you know, the backbone for every healthcare is having, you know, specialists, Gambians that are trained in surgery and radiology. So that way we can take care of our own. We have a lot of Gambians abroad that are already into home care. How can we work with diaspora and to bring those talent home so we can have, you know, a good healthcare sector? You know, in terms of supply chain, you know, and procurement, you know, we need systems in place that will prevent, you know, like you go to some of these hospitals, they're selling the supplies that are meant for the hospital to pharmacy. So there's a huge gap there, you know, you know, and then when it comes to the stock, you know, the inventory, who is managing all that? Do we have systems in place to say, hey, we've sent, you know, to Sukuta Hospital, we've sent, you know, 500 gloves there. Who's monitoring what? Who's signing off? If 10 were given out to patients or customers, who is signing off of that? So if we don't have those, you know, supply chain and procurement systems, you know, they'll keep stealing from the same system they are meant to help. You know, and when I say end-to-end value chain, I'm talking about specialists having a robust supply chain and procurement system. And then also in terms of supplies, you know, we can't import all of our drugs, you know. When I grew up, herbal medicine was a big thing, you know, and they work pretty well. So why not we create industry that can create jobs in Gambia, and then we can have certain drugs that are made and manufactured here. We have, you know, strong institutions like MCA. They can test those drugs, make it viable for human consumption. So that way we don't have to, you know, import some of these expensive drugs. Yes, some drugs we'll have to import regardless, but there are some we can locally manufacture them. It will create job and it will reduce the importation cost, right? And then the hospitals themselves, we need to, you know, we need to have a rehabilitation program where, you know, they're meeting safety standards. Because you go to some of these hospitals, in a very dilapidated, you know, situation, you know, even the ministers will not want to take their family there because it just doesn't look right for those. But then we expect people in those communities to go to those hospitals. So rehabilitation needs to be done. This hospital needs to be, they need to have, you know, adequate, you know, equipment and supplies, enough ICU. People need to be empowered to be able to take care of ourselves. So if we're not doing this end-to-end value chain, it's going to be a problem. Like you said, there's always going to be lapses. You know, the bad actors are going to find ways, you know, to grift off of the system.
Thank you. Go, Faramos, go ahead.
Mr. Sawo, I was listening to, as you were answering to Sariang's question, it reminded me a comment that the Minister of Information, Dr. Sise, said the other day on Coffee Time. Said he was listening to two people. It sounded like they were Americans with their American slang. They don't really understand the real issues of this country, and that you guys have no clue what you are talking about. And I want to kind of delve into, I mean, using that, I mean, that criticism, and I know, of course, it was political, for you to, in these areas, governance, corruption, affordability, and education. Dr. Sise said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Can you tell us what is wrong with governance in this country? I mean, you don't have to be really in detail. And then how do you intend to approach to solve it? Corruption as an issue also. What is wrong with the corruption? How do you intend to solve it? Affordability, and then education. In a way, you've already dealt with it when you were responding to Sariang. But just succinctly, because I want to give you an opportunity, it was basically saying you guys are just with your American slang, in Hamulen Aferi Nakala, and you were just talking. What do you say to respond to him based on these 4 issues?
Yeah, so Dr. Sisi was actually alluding to the road construction project that, the 91 kilometer. I never said it was a bad thing, right? So having 91 kilometers of road is great. And we're happy for the people of Kiang. I have relatives, I have in-laws that are actually from Kiang. What I'm saying is we don't want this to be another white elephant project.
Correct.
And when I say white elephant project, 5-10 years from now, even those people in Kiang have nothing to show for it. So we risk it being an underutilized asset. So when an asset is underutilized, we're not saying it's not a great asset. We're saying we're not using that asset to its fullest potential. For instance, you guys are abroad, you invest, you buy nice homes and land here, right? So if you build an empty house, nice house, you spend $300,000. Nobody's living there. You are abroad, none of your family is living there. Then that becomes an underutilized asset. It's still an asset, but it's underutilized. The only way you can gain the full potential of that house is by tying it to some economic benefits that are tangible. For instance, logically, what you would do is, hey, let me get a tenant in there, right? So you're gaining something from there. You're getting that monthly rental, which is good. So if something breaks, you don't have to keep sending money from America, right? You can say, hey, I have 10 months worth of rent. Security or whoever my family member is, go fix this. So now that house can fix itself. It can maintain itself. And then you even have in surplus. You may even not need to come with pocket money when you come into Gambia because you say, hey, I've saved enough money for the 10 months. While I'm here for these 2 months, I have enough money, right? So it's the same ideology, it's the same concept. When we build these roads, they need to have return on investment. Before we even embark on this project, we have to make sure we're able to project the return. I lived in Texas. Abilene right now, they have these private investors that are trying to build, AI Stargate. Abilene, back then, people were like, hey, I don't want to move there. There's not much going on there. But as soon as the state of Texas had a memorandum of understanding with those big investors, you know what they did? They started building road networks, utilities, infrastructure, internet that are going to connect to those data centers. Absolutely. Because they know more people are going to move to those areas. There's going to be construction. There's going to be a lot of this thing. But they're doing it concurrently. Once the road is being built, these private investors are building the data centers. And once the project is done, now you have roads that connect to jobs. We have roads that connect to export hubs. We have roads that connect to, even commercial hubs or even industrial park. For instance, like those data centers, these are worth $20 billion. That's a whole industrial park of data centers.
Right.
But they're doing this concurrently. But if you look at the case of Kiang, unfortunately, yes, it's natural for me and you and small retail investors to buy land in those areas, but those are small scale activity. Those are micro activity. We need macro activity, like strong industries, textile industry, even the Jahali Pacha Rice project, we can find ways to also connect that Kiang Road to CRR, processing centers, because farmers here, the post-harvest loss is enormous. We can have storage centers along that road, we can have textile industries, those that are sourcing the cotton. We can even have logistics trade hubs along those lines. So with those strong industries that are, if you build those concurrently with the road, those people of Kiang don't have to migrate to the urban area in Combo for jobs. They can create 20,000, 30,000 jobs. And you know what that does? That also increases the tax base. We don't have to keep depending on tax. Now we have 30,000 new people that are paying into the system. We can actually afford to maintain those roads. We can actually afford to easily pay for those roads. We can actually have surplus. And that surplus can be used to build other roads in other areas where development haven't reached. So we need to, so when he says, oh, these people don't understand what he's talking about, you should ask him, so these tough financial and economic implications that goes with those roads. Because if we don't have those strong industries there, maintenance is going to be a problem. Where's the money going to come from? Even if it's taxpayer funded, you can't just frivolously use our tax, just how you want it. When you build the road, just don't stop there. Build the industries, textile industry, logistics, connect it to commercial hub. So that way we have macroeconomic activity that can easily pay off this loan, and even the maintenance will not be an issue. Because we know sustainability is a big failure for us here in the Gambia. You know, we build stuff, in 2-3 years, we have nothing to show for it. It's all run down, there's no maintenance structure. And sometimes you can't blame NRA because the funds are not there. The only way the funds can be there is by increasing the taxes or levies, which would cause more businesses to close, unemployment and unemployment to rise, more of our youth are going to go to back way, and then the loop continues. So even if PPP comes into power, UDP, and we maintain the same status quo of how they execute this project poorly, how the implementation sucks, trust me, it's just going to be this, different phase, but the same result. So this is where we need to ask the tough questions. Who is funding this? What is the implication on the taxpayers? Who's going to foot for this bill? Because if you invest over $100 million on the road project, it's great. I'm happy for the people of Kiang. But you need to make sure you can get 3-4 times of that value to make sure it's economically viable. Because if it's not viable, if you only make 50-60 million in 5 years, the 40 million is the deficit, right? You would have to increase taxes to cover those deficits. Those are the financial implications. So when he says we don't know what we're talking about, he doesn't know. He's very anecdotal. He knows. Because, he taught at the university, one of the most prestigious institutions in our country. He taught future leaders. So he knows this stuff. But is he doing the needful? Sometimes, yes, I know he's MPP or he's with the president. But if I was in that position, I would tell the president what he needs to hear. He can take it or leave it. That's up to him. But at least my conscience would be, hey, I fought for Gambian people, because we need to make sure this investment trickle down to the average citizens.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want it to be another white elephant project. 5 years from now, people are still complaining about hardship. The average Gambian need connections. They need to know X, Y, and Z. We don't want those kind of systems. We want people to be able to work hard and make it without knowing Coach Pasamba Jao or Musa Jeng or anybody. This is the Gambia we believe in. This is what we need to change. So when he says we're out of touch, he's actually out of touch. Because he's only thinking about himself. He's smart, he's educated, he knows some of this financial implication, but he's not out there saying it. And this is where we need journalists to actually ask those tough questions. Because at the end of the day, me and you, we're going to have to pay for this, through taxes or new levies, whether we know it or not. And that's the reality. And this is where we're also educating Gambians to understand, some of these projects, yes, they look good on headlines and papers, but you look at the cost-benefit analysis, you look at the ROI, you look at the state of the economy today, without having strong economic engine at scale, we risk having the same issue over and over. Even if I come as a president and do the same thing, maintain the same status quo, nothing changes. It's just a different phase. But I'm also going to be executing this poorly. So we need to think outside of the box. We need to make sure whatever we do today as leaders trickle down to the average citizens, to the ordinary citizens that are struggling. Because those people need mass jobs. They need strong industries to be able to support them.
This is what Dr. Cisse will say and has been saying, that their government inherited a bad system. And that brings me to the question. You are the leader of a PPP. This is a party that usher in independence. And for 30 years, they were at the helm. I heard you talk about price control as a monitoring mechanism. We've been there, done that, and it was a disaster. There was scarcity, there were lines, rice all over the place. Price control was a big disaster. And you're mentioning it. Dr. Cisse would say, if you guys had invested in roads, then we will be able to do some of these things that you're talking about, creating economic zones and jobs. But you did not, he would say. He's going to say, for 30 years, PPP, the party that you're now the flag bearer, they did not invest in education. High schools were not even built. The same high schools that they inherited in independence. That's what he would say. Corruption, he would argue. The reason why Yahya Jammeh came and was able to sell this garbage to Gambians, every Gambian thought that corruption was uncontrollable during the PPP era. What would you say to these things that people would say? Now, why would we want to even listen to PPP? We've been there, done that. It was a disaster.
Great question. We also have to give credit where it's due, right? When PPP was in power, the Jahal Pacha Rice project was initiated during that era.
Corruption, yeah, too. Big time
Yeah.
corruption.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We have the Jahal Pacha rice project. We have the Kuntawur rice milling. We have a stronger currency then because we were able to export more back then. And then as of today, I know this was a long time ago, but the party is also evolving. We're looking at PPP in the 21st century. When you talk about corruption, I believe Jammeh did have a commission. I don't know if he had a commission or investigation on that issue, but who was convicted from the corruption?
No one that I know of.
So why is that?
I mean,
If there was flagrant corruption, that Jammeh was complaining about, I would assume countless number of people that worked in the PPP government, they should have been thrown in jail because he came as a reformer, right? Like, hey, I want to change this and this. I'm not saying the PPP government for 30 years was perfect. No, I didn't. I'm not saying that. I feel like they could have done more, But if you look at some of those, projects they initiated, the Jahal Pacha rice project, the Kuntawu rice milling, even NAWEC and all these institutions we see today, even the ports, it started in that regime. We were exporting more, we had stronger currency. So yes, things could have been better, but even when they talk about this corruption, I don't know. I was like, why didn't X, Y, and Z go to jail for these corruption issues? So and then for me right now, I'm more focused on the present because a lot of the youth today that are 35 and under or closer to my age, again, we're not old enough to understand a lot of things that transpired back then, but they're looking forward to the future. They want to make sure, when they have kids, they want to make sure they have this, they inherit hope, good economy. So I keep saying for PPP to evolve as a party, for PPP to be one of the change makers, we need PPP in the 21st century. We need strong agenda to be able to sell PPP to the younger generation. The party is evolving. PPP is the only party that has, term limits in their constitution. So.
Oh no! All the parties, most of them, they do have term limits. I mean, they all do.
But so why are we seeing leaders hanging on for 20, 30 years? I'm confused if they have term limits.
I'm just saying, even NPP, they're boasting, they're bragging that they do have term limits. And if you have a manifesto, they don't mean a thing. Unless I'm just saying, I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm saying that all the parties, they're all saying that they have term limits in their constitution.
Okay, I'm not disputing that, but also we've seen a lot of parties that have been here, the same leaders been here for more than a decade, right?
Their leader was here for 30 years. APRC, their leader's been here for 20 years. Here we go again with Barrow. I mean, trying to go for 15 years.
Yes, that's an issue we need to address as a nation. That's why I keep saying PPP in the 21st century, the mindset, the policies we have in place is evolving, or it has evolved. These are some of the things we recognize, and these are some of the policy issues I'm also bringing to the table. I'm like, hey, we need to do things differently. I represent a lot of youth, and they truly want to see change. They want to see programs that impact them, that trickle down to their needs. So these are some of the shifts we need to make. So a lot of adjustment and refinement is also happening within the party to be able to meet the needs of every Gambian. So we don't have a perfect system yet.
From Brother Sawo, he said it trickle down. We got to trickle up with our partners.
No deposit, flexible payment plans, and lots of discounts. Get your Leave apartment today.
Brother Marong.
Mr. Sawo, thank you very much for answering those questions. And I must come to your defense on this side that you in fact know what you are talking about, because your personal story and your professional story is very profound, and you have a record to show it. So definitely, you know what you're talking about, and you need to continue amplifying your voice in the political space. So moving forward, Obviously, you highlighted the challenges and on a lot of aspects. But now, I obviously working and doing forming a consulting firm, it's not an easy task. We all know that, and working through that to be successful, it amounts a lot of effort and energy and strategy development. Now, you highlighted in your first segment saying that sometimes when you go to these offices, the folks that work for us, meaning Gambians, they think they are doing a favor for us. If you could highlight the work ethics that you instill in your employees from the United States all the way to Gambia, and how do you think you could replicate such an effort as a leader of your private company into this government institution, highlighting some of the biggest challenges in terms of being serious at work, maximizing productivity, and taking their day-to-day seriously, and not you're supposed to report to work at 8 o'clock, but you have a Gente to go to. When you show up at the office at noon, you need to take a lunch about an hour. At 1 o'clock, you need to pray Zuhur. But that is all. At the end of the day, at the end of the month, you show up to ask for your paycheck. I would like you to highlight these insights and how you would bring a difference and replicate those experiences that you earn over the years.
So, yeah, we do have a serious work ethic problem in this country. For my private companies, what I've been able to accomplish is first is education, because I don't think sometimes we understand how nonchalant we can be as individual, as nation. Because when I launch some of these businesses that I have here today, the issue punctuality is a big problem here. And then when people eventually show up at work, you come to work, your work time is 8 o'clock. You get to work 8:30, and then you want to take breakfast from 8:30 to 9:30, right? So this is what I tell them, because some of my companies are appointment based. I was like, if you set up an appointment, if a customer sets up an appointment, they expect you to be available at that time. That's the whole point of an appointment. I shouldn't have to set an appointment and then come sit and wait for you. It doesn't work like that. I expect you to be there waiting for me to come for the appointment. So there's some education that needs to be part of it. Because I even give examples of banks, right? As for example, you go to the bank at 8 o'clock, you expect to deposit your funds, but then you meet the cashiers talking outside, taking breaks, and then you walk into the bank. What is the first thing you're going to say? Oh, these bankers are not serious. I don't have that time to wait for these bankers to eat their food. I expect them to be servicing, the customers. So I try to educate them because I believe sometimes people don't know. So we have to excuse their ignorance. So also when you serve in the public sector, you're representing Gambia, you branded Gambia. So when foreign entities or investors come and they see this kind of nonchalant attitude, the first thing to say is this is not a serious country, because this is one of their highest offices and look at how they're behaving. So we should all be good and great ambassadors for Gambia. We should all represent Gambia in different ways, shape, or form in our capacity. So I feel like education needs to be done, so that way there's no, ignorance for excuse. And I feel like there should be remedies, to some of these actions. You come to work late, the remedy will be, hey, we're going to have to prorate your salary. You come to work, you didn't eat at home, you took 2 hours, your productivity is very low. There should be remedies, and those remedies is, there should be penalties tied to your salary. The low performance. I think we need to set up a performance-based structure for a lot of this ministry, where people can actually see their performance. There should be KPIs with different metrics. Punctuality should be one of them. What have you been able to achieve as a public servant in that specific role that you are in? Let's say, for example, if you're in the Gambian Immigration Department, how many customers were you able to see or issue passports to or resolve their issue? So once we have all those metrics in place, people can actually see their performance. Then it's fair to, maybe fire some people, let some people go, because I feel like, our civil servant is actually bloated. We can save a lot of money there by automation. and then empowering them to go into other sectors where they can actually add value. So a lot of these things need to be done. It needs to be tied to a performance-based metric where people are not saying, "Hey, I've been unjustly fired." You know, the performance is there. You know, we're tracking your punctuality. We're tracking, you know, based on your scope of work for that role. We're tracking your performance. You know, like the immigration is a good one. How many passports have you been able to, you know, something tied to your job that would actually show your performance month to month. And if you're exceeding those thresholds, then you're obviously doing a great work. But if you're underperforming, it will show. And then once you hit a certain threshold, you shouldn't be allowed to continue receiving pay. And then for people that are coming to work, not communicating, you know, because this happened not just in the public sector, but even in the private sector, what I've been able to do is have performance-based metric. You know, like Mirror, for instance, we do have incentive for teams because we have about 5 different departments within Mirror. And then every month, certain teams win bonuses, you know, sometimes $3,000 to $4,000, you know, dollars extra per team based on their performance. So it also incentivizes this other team to do better, to boost productivity. So without having those systems in place, then it becomes hard, you know, to justify firing certain individuals. It becomes hard to track and manage who is doing what and who is not doing what. And then people cry foul. Oh, I've been unjustly fired. Oh, this person doesn't like me because I'm from this tribe or that tribe. You know, they can spin the whole narrative around you as well. So, but once we have performance-based metrics tied to every role, and even the ministry, like I said, we need to have OKRs for every ministry. Ministry of Agriculture, if we're spending 20% of our budget, you know, on agriculture, I need to see performance. What are the key results? Why are we still importing, you know, more rice? You know, just 2-3 months ago, the government announced they're receiving, you know, hundreds of thousands of metric tons of rice from Japan. Shouldn't it be sustainable by now? If we spend close to 20% of our budget on agriculture, you know, we should have more, you know, we should be able to yield more tons of rice or sugar. So these are all things that we need efficient systems in place. So that way the system is fair for everybody. And then if you're not meeting your target year over year, you know, I can unequivocally say, hey, you're underperforming. And then if you dispute the fact, then here's the numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Sawo. You know, there is a wild card. The wild card is the political expediency. I listened to Sehu. All the politicians that came before us say the same thing. And when they get in there, change is difficult. People resist. People will tell you, oh, everything is about transactional. You're doing this, man, people are mad at you. You're not going to get reelected. You hired a technocrat, great person. And I'll use an example. We have Social Security. Mr. Manjan was out there from red to green. But the people that work for him don't like him. They don't like his style because he's too transparent. He holds them accountable. He doesn't want government assets. And they started going to the president. Mr. President, everything that he's doing is undermining you. And you're not going to win. How would a President Saho deal with such issues? We know the wild card is out there. They will tell you, oh, even parking government vehicles after working hours is now very popular. But I heard you. By the way, you're a veteran. I'm a veteran too. And you have these work ethics. I served 22. So I great on you for saying that. But getting out there, it's difficult. It's hard. Now, how would you stand firm on principle and push this through?
Okay, the easiest way to do this is by getting like-minded people in your cabinet. Because like you said, there are some naysayers in there. It doesn't matter what you do. They want to keep it transactional. They want to maintain the status quo to their benefit. But now, if we know Honorable Marong is a, you know, high caliber individual, has integrity, you know, this is somebody that will definitely change the status quo, challenge the status quo. These are the kind of people we should give the platform to go there and make the change, because he has a proven track record of credibility, doing the needful. But if we surround ourselves with people that don't want change, they want to bring back the old system from 1994, obviously we are now polluting our environment. This is the same thing we've seen with Barrow. He's been there for 10 years. He came into power at the same time as Patrice Talon, the president of Benin. He came into power 2016. He served 10 years. He's out. They have a new leader now. He came the same time as Barrow. Benin is a country 10 times bigger than Gambia. It's about 111,000 square kilometers. He's been able to revive their cotton industry. They can now export garments outside. You know, you go to the capital of Benin, it's amazing. Even Taft Global made a whole video about it. He was shocked, you know, about the tremendous development, right? But he was able to get that by getting like-minded people that have principle, they truly want change, to surround him, because he can't do it all by himself. But if I come as a president, and I know you can do the job right, you're more than qualified, but no, I don't want you because you're going to check me, or you're going to tell me, Mr. President, this is wrong. This is not what the Gambians stand for. I bring people that are just yes men. They're my minions. They're going to say yes to everything I do. Now I'm polluting the same environment with the same bad elements. And obviously, we shouldn't expect from that. We should expect things to get worse. So this is just a logical thing. And when you see people do that in power, just know they're not there to serve you anymore. They're there specifically for their interests. It's just as simple as that.
Fatima was good. I'll go for the second round, but I'll wait you ask.
Go ahead. You can do a follow-up. I'm good.
All right. Dr. Mr. Sawo, thank you very much for that question. But I guess my question to you is, obviously, in our current political climate, everything is transactional. And considering that, how would you be different in terms of dealing with the public, in terms of holding your officials accountable? It's okay to hire competent people, but how do you measure that? How do you measure that person is honest and his integrity is par and acceptable? I mean, and I think I want you to put more meat on the bone as far as what steps would you take in terms of changing the current status quo, and how do you think that would benefit on a macro level, not macro, but macro level to the Gambian folks, Gambian people who elected you?
Yes, I mean, with every appointment, I'll be very open to, you know, have congressional hearings. For instance, if I want to appoint Honorable Musa Jeng, you know, for a position, I'm open to having congressional hearing, so that way he's ratified by people, you know, by those Congress people. So let's say, for example, if he's served in the previous government, or he's taken bribes before, or he's, you know, I'm not saying that's this, I'm just giving a hypothetical situation. You know, those people can bring those up and be like, you worked in this ministry before, well, it didn't go well. You were not able to achieve, you know, a lot of this, you know, your accomplishment was subpar, for instance. Or, oh, you served in this capacity and there was, you know, it may not be directly you doing it, but the people under you were involved in, you know, bribes or, you know, fraud or misuse of power or whatever the situation is. So there's a track record there, right? So I believe congressional hearing is fair, you know, so that way people know, okay, you know, they can even gauge his competence level. Like, okay, he's really a smart guy. He can do the job. He has the, you know, educational background. He's, you know, he's worked in private sector, public sector, and, you know, all, you know, we have a checklist and he checks all the boxes. So I think having those congressional hearing is fair, you know, so that way people understand the caliber of people, you know, a president like me is also appointing. I'm not just bringing any Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, I'm not just bringing people from different ministry, appointing them here because I want them to do X, Y, and Z specifically. So I think that breeds the ground for transparency. It breeds the ground for dialogue to happen. And if ultimately the Gambians are not satisfied with that appointment, it shouldn't go through. if there's so many ifs, and so many people disapprove, then let's appoint somebody else that doesn't come with all those drama, because we want people to come and deliver straight to the Gambian people, competent people with no ifs and buts. Oh, his track record here wasn't good, should we give him another chance? No, let the people decide that. I think congressional hearing will be fair, and then once the appointment is ratified by those people, we can proceed.
Thank you, Farah. Faramos, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Sawo.
Yeah, just to add because I think governing is a very complex and challenging thing. It is.
It is, yeah.
It's always easier to be in the opposition and say some of these things. Because if you get elected, you are surrounded by people that help you get elected. The Keba Nankos of this world. Madike Fall. Fode. There are people that are around you that they are part of this thing, that they want that you guys are together to bring about change. When you get into power, those are the people that are going to surround you. And some of these folks, and that is what, don't think for a minute that Barra doesn't have good people in the cabinet. Most of them, they have master's degree. Most of them, they have the talent and the skills. Don't think for a minute that these are a bunch of idiots. They are not. What is lacking, if you ask me, you gave an example comparison with the president of Benin. What he has done, you said he had like-minded people. But he was a different person. He stayed for 10 years and he was out of there. And that is what our country needs. Someone with a vision. You are going to have people that are around you because of the relationship that you have with them politically. That's just part of the game. Yes. Really, that's just the reality. You're president, you're going to have those people. Unite. They have people around them. The Tombong say this. When everything is said and done, Talib is president tomorrow, they are going to be the key people that are running the show. It's the reality. The question is, the person at the helm understands what they need to do, what their vision is, how they are going to tackle affordability, how they are going to tackle, again, if he leads, everyone else follows. But if that person doesn't lead, people are going to exploit the situation. So my question to you, I just thought I wanted to add that. My question to you is, most people are saying that we want change. Why do you think that we want change? That definitely come 2026, Barrow needs to go and to be replaced by something else. Why do we need that?
Yeah, because majority of the people are struggling in this country. The youth, limited opportunity. Just last year, 2025, thousands of our able-bodied youth, died in the back way. So the economic hardship is still there. Because if you look at Gambia, like with every nation, there's low-income class, middle-income class, high-income class. But majority of our citizens are still in the low-income class. The middle-income class of this country today, they're not here. They're in the diaspora. Mm-hmm. We depend heavily on remittances. Even the working class people here, their income is not enough to make ends meet. They need one or two people in the diaspora to be able to supplement the income that they have here today. Because the diasporans, they basically are middle income class, they're not here in this country physically, but the remittances they bring is getting close to $1 billion, 800 million, getting almost $1 billion. It helps this economy. It helps stabilize this economy greatly. Otherwise, we will be at war right now because people are not going to be able to feed. It would be very devastating. So my thing is, and what majority of the Gambians feel is, let's create opportunities here in Gambia. Let's get these people at the low income class to middle income class so they can have more disposable income. They can build their lives here. They don't have to depend on the government sector. They don't have to leech off of the government sector to be able to live the lives that they want to. So other than that, we're going to continue having this cycle. Our best people are going to be overseas. Because we want more Gambians, even those in the diaspora like yourself, we want everybody to be home, right?
So we need to build middle income so that, how do you do that? Let's say President Sawo, you were elected 2026. We all know the salary scales. We all know the informal sector, people at Serekunda market. How are you going to do, what are you going to do to lift up the income of these people? Because it's easier said than done. How do you do that? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, we're going to do that different ways, high level, so that way we don't lose some of the audience. We need to invest in critical sector like agriculture, so that way we can create jobs. And then agriculture is not just about, harvesting the food. We can also have processing companies here in the Gambia.
Yes.
The reason why agriculture is failing today is we just hand out tractors and we think that will solve the problem. No, like I said before with healthcare, we need end-to-end full value chain on agriculture. So that way we can create a system. You just don't hand out tractors. We need viable seeds. We need fertilizers. We need irrigation. We need to be able to have storage facilities to curb post-harvest loss. Because a lot of these people, they toil all day and night. And then at the end of the day, they're only selling 20% of their produce. Everything is already wasted. There's no processing company to sell that to. And they need guaranteed buyers in the market. So you need to have the full value chain. So that way we can then measure, okay, how many, we used to import 10,000 tons of rice before. Has that reduced? Yes or no? We used to cultivate 20 hectares before. Are we cultivating more? Our tons, how much are we yielding in the rice? So we need to have these key results. So that way we can show the Gambian people, hey, we're becoming, our food security, we're becoming more self-reliant. So
Absolutely.
when you have this, guardrails in place for agriculture, you'll be able to boost productivity. You don't even have to control the market. Now, more people will want to get into farming, especially with farming where you need more people to produce. The government needs to make sure we have guaranteed minimum pricing. Like, hey, when I produce this bag of rice, I'm guaranteed this. And the government is making sure they're connecting me with the buyers easily. And we have roads that can easily connect me to these buyers. So that way, produce that's supposed to take 10 hours before can only take 2 hours because the roads connect me straight to the buyers. This is why I said the road needs to go with those industry. And then we have storage facilities, to reduce post-harvest losses, especially that around the CRR region, we need to have, cold storage, to reduce post-harvest losses. And then we need processing factories in those industries that can also add value, process this into like, granules, right? We can produce our own oil. We don't have to keep importing oil. We can buy locally here, and this will create jobs. This will create industry, textile industry. Back in Jawara's era, they had the cotton factory in Basse, right? Where is that today? We can revitalize that again. So that will create local employment. We can reduce rural-urban migration. There'll be more activity at scale, like macro, not micro, macro economic level. And this will create more jobs for the youth in the area. It will also, as a country, will have more export going outside. Our currency will then gain value. And then this will trickle down. This is how we create jobs. We can create jobs just from our own economy, and I haven't even talked about tourism. I haven't even talked about fintech and technology. I'm just focused on the agricultural sector, but these are other sectors, even the tourism, right? Most people, when they come here, they only come for the beach tourism and then the sun. We can create programs, to boost ecotourism, cultural tourism. We can have great amenities. When people come, they can look forward to it, and then we can remove this crazy levies we have at the airport, So when people come, they have 10, 15 things to look forward to. This is how you boost the tourism industry. Because our tourism industry, the investment there, there's nothing to show for it, You look at the, in Bakau, what is the name of that crocodile place? I forgot.
Kachikali.
Yeah, Kachikali, and then you look at the monkey park, they haven't taken care of this, and when people come, they want to do more stuff. We have nice weather, but we don't have too many amenities. In the whole country, we don't even have a movie theater. When people come with their families, they want to go to movie theater, they want to go to parks, like river parks where they can, we have River Gambia. Why can't we create nice river park where families can go and enjoy ourselves, and people will spend to go to these places, We need places where our kids can play. You can't just build house everywhere. There should be proper zoning laws, Every town, city needs to have, a park where I can take my kids, play, free for citizens. These are all amenities that can boost revenue, So we can create jobs, even power generation, right? Gambia doesn't produce enough, energy, even if we want to create industry today, we are not positioned strategically, because you need energy. So we need to diversify our energy sector. We can empower Gambians to become independent power producers. They can sell back that energy to NAWEC, but we can create healthy competition where They're not, we're not empowering businessmen to exploit the citizens, but we want enough supplies, so that way when there's enough supply and less demand, we can maintain that equilibrium where the prices are also favoring the customer, and then we can generate enough energy to sustain industries, because you can't have industry without the energy. It's not just going to happen. So we need to be intentional in terms of nation building, from agriculture to energy sector, even waste management. A lot of waste from Greater Banjul area, we can turn that into valuable products, like concrete slabs, furnitures. We can have light manufacturing industry. Every region in Gambia can be known for something, from textile, to, carpentry. And then this is how you empower the youth. And then those that are in the private sector, we incentivize them to absorb these young women that have the skill set from this TVET center, give them tax breaks, guarantee them, entry-level jobs, so they can become educated, and they're going to also become entrepreneurs 5-10 years from now. So these are the different ways we can actually create job, and then reduce our dependency on foreign imports, make sure our currency becomes more robust, through these measures. So there are so many ways we can create jobs just from agriculture alone. And I haven't even dived into fintech, technology,
Absolutely.
AI, automation that can be done. Tourism also is another sector. Even healthcare. We can turn Gambia into a medical tourism hub. Because there's a lot of Gambians that are already nurses today or nurse assistants. We can make Gambia like, hey, if you want to retire, we have the great weather, we have the coastal beach, come here for medical tourism, because you also have to look at the strength of your country, right? We look at the population of Gambia, how many people are into what? If a lot of our people are already into nursing in the diaspora, they understand the standards, let's create an economy around that. That's what Turkey was able to do. They have a lot of great medical experts. Now people go there for every kind of surgery, so they're able to utilize that asset they have as a country to build a whole economy. And they have not just the best doctors, and they're doing it, they're boosting their economy, and they're doing it at a way lesser cost than you can in Canada, UK, or America. The same thing China is doing. When it comes to the economy, they focus on manufacturing. Now they manufacture cars better than America. American can't even compete. Now they have, they have to add tariffs coming in for those products because they're going to kill their own industry. So we can look at the strength we have and utilize those strengths to the fullest potential.
I think brilliant answer. But then the question becomes, where is the money going to come from? Because these are not like, the money is not going to come manna from heaven. You want to do all these things. Gambia is a poor country. You said it at the beginning. It's a tax-based economy. Few people are paying taxes. You have a very small private sector. Where is the money going to come from? And then you talked about servicing loans, which is eating up a good percentage of GDP. Are you going to bring in more loans to do all these things? How are you going to fund it?
Yeah, so there are different ways we can fund it. I'm going to focus, the first thing we're going to focus on is our debt restructuring, because 25 to 30% of our budget goes into servicing principal and interest, right? So we have to look for different ways and talk to those creditors to see how we can restructure those debts, maybe lower our annual payments by half. Because now if we have that extra 15% that should have gone to loan, we can invest those into high return projects that can yield surplus for us. Because what's going to happen simultaneously or concurrently is we're going to invest, through debt restructuring, we're going to invest some of that funds that should have gone into annual payment, invest into high return project that can self-sustain itself, create surplus, create jobs, and then boost our GDP along. Everything just have to be done concurrently. Otherwise, if we focus on one and we leave the other, we create another weak economy. And then we're going to focus on what we can do locally. How we can, we have a very youthful demographic. 45 and under makes about 65%. How can we get those youth more productive, boost our GDP, look at what line of work we can do to sell to other nations, do trade deals with other countries to see how we can market Gambia to say, hey, you want groundnut oil? We have the best quality. You can always purchase from us. Our ports should be one of our strategic critical infrastructure. We have landlocked countries like Mali, Bissau, right, Burkina Faso. How can we, execute trade deals with them, to make sure we have a thriving logistics company. Gambia can be a logistics hub because we have the Atlantic Ocean, we have the River Gambia. We can create a lot of millionaires just from supply chain and logistics alone. We have the ports, we get the goods, so we can get it to you in Mali in a short amount of time. We have the roads that can connect, to those commercial hubs. And then, we create more people to get into the transportation industry, so we can create a lot through our local economy. Our waste even can generate enough energy, so that way we're depending heavily on importing crude oil, to generate electricity. So a lot can be done locally, to boost some of these issues that we're having. So debt restructuring is one thing. Focusing on the people, how we can also get into light manufacturing. Our everyday needs should not be imported. We should be able to create at least a list of 100 commodities that should be made locally and purchased locally. Because what's going to happen is we're going to have to rely less on importation, and we're going to generate more millionaires that are going to create this manufacturing company. They're going to create high value jobs. So this is the way we can also get more people, increase the tax base. So those are the different, ways, that my government will work on, to boost productivity, to ensure we have strong economic engines that can self-sustain itself. And then eventually, through, great fiscal policies, intentional fiscal policies, we can reduce our debts, create more jobs, boost our economy, and be self-sufficient.
Thank you very much. So, Sariang, I guess we can just go another round and then maybe have Mr. Sawo give us his closing, right? Would that work for you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Marong.
No problem. No problem. Thank you, Mr. Sawo. Mr. Sawo, I know we talk briefly and at length, though it's not even brief, but at length about the challenges our country faces. But also we have another challenge, and which is lately there is this tribal sentiment that took over the conversation in our political space. And obviously, we listened to you when you came on initially and talk about your background from Badibu to growing up in Sukuta, coming to the United States. And obviously, this has been there and forever and forever. What would be your approach in addressing this cancer in our society, more particularly in terms of public servants, their participation in politics and being out there and visibly defending the status quo, and obviously even threatening those fair or unfairly, alleging them that they are, opposition sympathizers. So what would be your approach to resolve this issue?
Yeah, we don't need tribal politics. We're not going to derive any benefit from that. We've seen how it ended with countries like Rwanda, the mass genocide between the Husis and the Tutsis. We don't want the same to repeat in Gambia. It's quite unfortunate because when I travel a lot, I've been overseas, even outside of the US, Gambians do get along. As long as you're Gambian, even if we're abroad, we open our doors to each other. Nobody asks, oh, are you Sarahule or are you Sere? Nobody cares. But I don't understand. Even in Gambia, we make jokes, from the different tribes. Oh, the Badabunkas, they eat a lot, love money too much. Or the Sarahulas will be like, you guys are you're my sons, So we make those jokes, But when it comes to politics, I believe that's where, the politicians are able to divide us. So I feel like this is a strategic tool they use, especially during the election cycle. And we Gambians, we need to open our eyes at this point. We shouldn't let those rhetoric continue. We get along just fine as a nation, workplaces. I even made a video about it today. It's a coincidence you asked. I did make a statement about my stance on it. PPP as a party, like I said, PPP is a very diverse party. We've had a Mandinka leader, a Fula leader, Keba Jallo, Oje Jallo, Papanjai, even Honorable Marike Fall is a Wolof. And that's, we want to replicate the same for Gambia, and I think we should put a law in place where if you're a public servant, you make such kind of, blatant statement against any tribe, you you should be ripped off your position, forced to be resigned immediately, and there should be penalties, monetary penalties attached to that, or you go to jail. Because we cannot keep perpetuating the same nonsense, especially during the election cycle. Because Gambia is a very small country. Intermarriage is a big thing here. Whether you know it or not, I have sisters that are married to Fullers. I have brothers that are married to Wolof. So tribal is never an issue unless when it comes to politics. So we shouldn't let those bad actors keep using that tool against us. They've done it over and over again, but I think it's just time for that to stop. So in terms of government, I think we should pass laws that would preclude, people, especially those in public servants, to make, those type of triggering statements. It should be grounds for firing immediately.
Thank you. Obviously, we are in the registration system, voter registration time frame. My question to you is: so far, what is your assessment of current voter registration, and if there are pitfalls or improvements that you would like to see? What are those?
There's been a lot of issues or accusations from different parties about irregularities, but this is where we need IEC to step up. I feel like there's a lot of favoritism. It depends who commit the crime, right? If it's certain individuals that commit the crime, there's impunity for them, and if it's so this is where we need IEC to step up. They call it Independent Electoral Commission for that reason. Just call it as it is. And people should be held accountable. But if IEP turns the blind eye on one party, it becomes hard for them to be, neutral, right? Because they'll be like, hey, you turn an eye on this person, so why are you now focusing your energy on me? So I'll leave that up to the IEC. Gambians are very vigilant this election cycle. If they see certain irregularities, they're going to speak up and say it. But that's where we need IEC to, be bold enough, and make pronouncement to say, hey, this is exactly what happened, and these are the actions we've taken to step in, because they have the authority to do that, So if they turn the blind eye on certain people or individual, well, there comes the prejudice, and then as a party, as an independent body, it becomes hard to, for them to effectively do their job, So I feel like the rules should be uniformly applied, to any parties or movements.
Thank you, Faramos. It's all you now, man.
So my final question, because there's a gentleman who kept hagging on this registration, and rightly so, because most people will tell you elections are not stolen at the day of the voting. In political parties that are out there, some are actually not only monitoring, they're investing money and fighting. What is PPP doing? Are you guys doing the same thing? Are you monitoring? Are you fighting? Are you doing, like, to use your words, the needful to make sure that they don't really steal the elections before even people line up and vote? What do you say to that?
Yes, we have. PPP is a party with regional structures. Like I said, Nene and I, or Marike Fal, we cannot be everywhere at once. So right. We have people, from different constituents or ward, and if they see something sort of fishy, they will send videos. But again, we don't want to be too impulsive. We want to make sure we gather all the facts. There were a few videos that were sent to me, but it was just not enough evidence for me to be, for me to come out there and make certain statements, because there are some questions, I want to be very, thoughtful here and not just come out, by impulse and say, hey, something fishy is going on. I want to be able to back that with evidence, that is fact-based. So, some videos were shared to me, but I was like, well, people are not going to understand the context, because it doesn't show everything, right? So I was like, we don't want to put ourselves in those situations. But yeah, we have people that are in those wards and constituents. If they see something, they share it to the group, they share it to me. We do have a WhatsApp group. But if it's something worth bringing out there, we have enough evidence to back, or videos, to back purportedly what is being shown, then, we'll definitely come to the public. But we don't want to do things prematurely and cause any chaos, because there's, the country is very polarized right now. The tension is high on very high tension right now. So we want to make sure if we're going to come out there and make any form of inflammatory statements, we have evidence to back
it up.
Strong
So
evidence.
you say, based on the videos that you saw, would you say that there is massive fraud that could pretty much, in a significant way, tilt the election in a certain direction for the government?
We have a simple majority, right? Right. In terms of the election in Gambia, every vote counts.
Right.
You could lose the election. You could lose the election by very small, minor margin. So, when some of these issues are happening, we have to be very mindful because it could actually cost us elections. I've seen videos where, the people that are registering, they actually look like minors. They don't look like they're 18.
Right.
They look more like they're 13 or 14. But again, we all built differently. Some people look younger than they look. Some people look older than they look. So it's hard to ascertain, hey, this, so again, it's very hard, to, yeah. So in certain things, when you can't challenge it authoritatively, it's better to, like, hey, we know this is, but what that does is people are paying more close, they're paying closer attention. Anything that needs to be scrutinized, they're bringing it out to the public so we can all collectively say, hey, nah, these are definitely minors. These are, they're not 17 or 18, or they're not going to be 18 anytime soon, right? So it's bringing opportunity for people to be vigilant, to scrutinize things, more carefully. But again, we can't really tell who is who, or who looks Gambian or not. It's too hard to ascertain.
So final, and then you can give us your closing. Final. Your party, PPP, supported the Barrow government in 2021. Is there any chance, if the Barrow government, let's say, for instance, there is a fallout within the coalition, that there is no coalition, and here the NPP reach out and said, hey, we worked things out in 2021, but we want to guarantee you that we want you guys to come back and let's win this election, and then we're going to accommodate some of your policies and programs. Are you guys going to give them a listening ear? Is it possible in the works? Are you open to any of that?
So I was no, we're not open to any of that, because the incumbent, they've been there for 10 years. 10 years is more than enough time to for constitutional reform, for economic reform, for fighting corruption. We've seen what the likes of Patrice Talon have they've been able to accomplish in Benin. And Benin is a country 10 times bigger than Gambia. So if countries like Benin can do it, why not Gambia? And we have an incumbent that's been there for 10 years. So they haven't really shown Gambians they're really serious or ready for change. Personally, it's not a conversation I would even entertain. It's not something I want to be part of. I feel like we need regime change. We need more patriotic people, to lead, to govern Gambians. So for me, that's a big no, because that, again, if it's something I cannot eat myself or sell to my family or relative, I wouldn't sell it to my fellow Gambians. So the analogy you gave is a big let.
So no way, no how.
Yes, no way. Yeah, that's never happening. And it's not something I would ever endorse, because then I would have to compromise, on my principle.
Yeah.
Have to turn a blind eyes on a lot of things that I stand against, that I stand against. And I don't want to put myself in that situation. And for me, being in politics is not a do or die. I'm an entrepreneur. I continue to be an entrepreneur. I have investments here and even outside of Gambia. So
we've seen politicians like the Dr. Caesars of this world, people that tell you this today and tomorrow they're out here defending like nobody's business. But anyway,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
But you are not Dr. Caesar, I'm sure. Anyway, All right, let me give you the opportunity. Closing remarks, Mr. Sawo. It's been very interesting, without a doubt, definitely. And you've made.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your platform. This was a very productive and engaging dialogue, and I did learn a few things, just from the conversation we have. These are high-level conversations. These are tough questions that need to be asked, and I'm happy to come back on your platform anytime to answer the tough questions. And I'm not saying I have all the answers to the tough questions. I'm not saying I know all, but I believe we can learn a thing or two from each other, and we can work together, for a better Gambia. So to the listeners out there, thanks for taking the time to listen. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we are praying day in and day out to have good governance in Gambia. We want every Gambian to work together. We don't care about your region or your tribe. And to the youth that are sitting on the sideline, please don't sit on the sideline this election. We need you. Your vote counts. Every single vote counts. So we need everybody to go out there and make sure they get their voters card. Today is May 10. So we actually have 11 days before May 21st. So if you haven't got your voters registration card, you still have the time to do so now. So we are all part of this journey. If we stay on the sideline, nothing changes. But if we participate, that's our voice. Our voice could lead to change. And we're not just doing this temporarily for us. We're doing this for our kids, our grandkids, and we're doing this for our parents who have been struggling all their lives. We want to be at that position where, they can be also proud of us, what our generation have been able to do or accomplish. Because we don't want to be the generation that just sat on Facebook Live or TikTok Live and just made empty noises, right? So I'm appealing to all Gambians. Let's work together. And then if anybody has better ideas, they want to share their ideas with us, I'm always open. Every day I'm learning in politics, right? There are certain things I didn't know before that I know now. But I'm open to having those, important dialogues with like-minded people that are experts, subject matter experts. In terms of the economy, we want to hear from economic experts, that have, the background, to help Gambia grow. So, I would like to thank everybody. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate it. It was definitely an exciting, interesting conversation. I mean, you really know where you're going. And I say, keep doing what you're doing because our country needs people like you. No doubt about it. Thank you very much, Mr. Sawo. Appreciate you.
Sure, no problem.
No deposit, flexible payment plans, and lots of discounts. Get your leave of admin today.
Brother Marong, that was a very interesting conversation.
I didn't even say thank you to my brother and
I did.
Yeah, you did, man. Father Mose, man.
No, you did not. Oh, sorry.
He's a Badibunka guy. I want him to highlight that.
Right. No.
He did very well, and we're proud of him. And he just needs to amplify his voice more and more, man.
I think he did.
Yeah, who knows what he's talking about. So I guess I don't know where that is coming from, but you cannot label him as not knowing what he's talking about. He definitely knows what he's talking about.
He really does.
He has the backbone. I mean, he's not spineless. He would say it as it is and hope he doesn't change.
Yeah, hope he doesn't change.
Yeah.
That's the operative word. And it doesn't look like somebody, I'm going to leggy boy, desperado, they change. When you don't bring a lot to the table. I mean, your options are very limited. He doesn't come across as someone who is desperate or options that are limited. He left the United States and then built a company. I mean, that says a lot about an individual. Basically saying, you know what, I am independent. And those are the folks that we need. Bro, when everything is said and done.
Musa, you bring something very interesting. And we were just talking about this weekend.
Yeah.
About time, right? We look the other way around, right? For how many years? 60 years. Jawara was from rural Gambia.
Yes.
Yaya Jammeh was from rural Gambia. You have the current president from rural Gambia.
Yes.
Right? What did they do? I mean, in terms of every single thing, and in terms of connecting and uplifting folks, who are, in need. We don't. So folks come in from, a different political angle, or different political orientation. Folks like Sehus, the Bensoudas, the Nenes, and all that. It's okay. I mean, if you listen to him, he was saying, money is not an issue. Money is not an issue. That's why I'm running for the presidency. I've seen something that is troubling, and there is a pattern here, and I wanted to add my voice to it. And I think I'm open to give them opportunity to sell their agenda. I mean, whoever felt that their political alignment, is up to par with them, absolutely, let's go for it. I mean, the more, the better. Let's debate on policy and what we can offer, and then I think it's really, really great, and I'm optimistic for the future. So it's good.
Brother Marong, I wanted to make a comment about something. I remember when I was in the Gambia, and I was on, what's the name of the TV with Sabali and QTV. And most interviews that I gave and continue to give, that our democracy is not yet consolidated. It can be very fragile. Compared to other countries, we can say that our democracy is evolving. But bro, we need to be very careful. And this is directed at the government. If you get to a position to decide who you're going to run against, I am telling you, you are setting the country on a dangerous path. No one, including the current government, should be in a position to decide, to use technicality, who they are going to run against. There are rumors going around. Clearly, there is a party called the Unite. They have every right to form their party. They have every right to have a candidate. They have every right to take the fight to them. Continuously. We all heard what Ahmad Ba said at a rally in Sukuta, that we need to be very careful with these folks. We have to do something about this party. We all see them at the rallies. We all see them when you listen to Dr. Cisse. Recently, the registration of this party, everything has been done from A to Z. What are we getting? Delay, delay, delay. They have paid $2 million in registration fee. If you want to come to me telling me that you don't have enough people to address this and still do registration, that's your logistical problem. It's not my problem as a party. Even though we paid our fee, even though we fulfill all the requirements, there are parties that have existed for the past 10 years. They haven't fulfilled those requirements. But what are we witnessing? Delay, delay, delay. Make sure that you don't register them now to curb the momentum. That is a dangerous path. That's not the democracy that we want. It is absolutely essential. Come 2026, whoever wins, wins. If he gets re-elected, then he gets re-elected. They're not only doing that. People say, oh, they're just rumors. They are working overtime to make sure that they disqualify Talib Ahmed Bensouda. They are working overtime to make sure that they come up with this fast commission to disqualify the gentleman so that he wouldn't run in 2026. Oh, they're going to say, okay, we ban Sirifo Sonko also. Oh, we ban this person. It's across the board. Oh, it's transparency. Oh, it's an independent entity. Gambians are not going to have that.